Hi, everyone. This is Julie Roth Novack. I am the CEO and co-founder of PartySlate. I know you guys are used to me doing geeky webinars on search engine optimization, email marketing, website best practices, Instagram. But today is a very different webinar, and I'm very excited. We are going to be talking about how you can infuse star talent into your virtual events and even think through adding, when the world opens back up, celebrities and talent into your physical events or hybrid events moving forward. So for those of you who are new and don't know PartySlate, I'm going to give you my 2-second overview. I was in the digital agency world for, I like to say 20 years, but 25 years. I'm old. And I was doing all these fabulous corporate events and fundraisers and galas. And I was looking online for inspiration, and I was very surprised to only find kind of some dated wedding blogs, and I couldn't find what I was looking for. Fast forward, I redesigned my kitchen. You may ask, why is that important? I redesigned my kitchen. I used a website called Houzz, H-O-U-Z-Z, which is one of my, they should pay me a commission, one of my favorite websites. And I saw these beautiful inspirational photos linked back, importantly, to the people that actually did those homes or kitchens. And I thought of the idea of PartySlate. It took me only about 5 years to quit my day job and get the confidence to start a new company. And since then, over the last 5 years, we have about 14,000 event professionals sharing their work on PartySlate, close to 900,000 photos, and people from all over the world visiting to get inspired. And so our goal, once the pandemic started, was to create really fun digital events every week to help you build your brand during these really uncertain times and challenging times, but also to give you new ideas. So with that introduction, I'm excited we have 3 members from the Hamilton cast, the nationwide tour, and also many other incredible roles that they've performed over the past years, and David Petro from Celebrities Unlimited. And we are going to talk about this new world we're living in and creative ways to infuse new energy into your Zooms. And so just to get started, I would love to kind of go around and have each of you tell us, how you got started in Broadway and musicals and maybe your favorite roles. And I'm a big fangirl, so we talked a little bit about this leading up. Just tell your story, how you got to where you are, and then we're gonna just jump into the program. So I'm gonna start with Desmond to go first.
Hey everybody, my name is Desmond Newson. I'm out here in Los Angeles, California. Thank you guys for being a part of this. I would say my journey with theater kind of started by accident, actually. I was never really trained growing up. It kind of started later in my years. I was more academic based, and I was more so focused on how do I get out of the small town that I'm in right now? So I was coming from a single parent home, so scholarships to me was the only way to do it. But during my high school years, you have to have other electives. And so my mom had chosen chorus for me, and I just kind of fell in love with the process of singing and creating harmonies. And the musical director for the choral department, he was also the MD for what they used to have this program called the summer musicals. And I would just do it because obviously as a teenager, I didn't want to be stuck at home during the summertime. And, I met so many interesting people who were just as unique and quirky as me. And so many of them were like, oh my God, you should really do this. You should really do this. But for me, I was just I got to keep my grades up, just so that I can get away from this small town. And once it came to me applying for college, I had so many scholarships presented to me, but they were like, oh, what do you want your major to be? And I was like, I don't know, theater. And I just put it down on my application, not realizing that that would end up being, what I would pursue. And then once I did get to college, I got accepted to all of my choices, but I ended up choosing the University of Central Florida Conservatory Theater out in Orlando. And it was pretty much like a Broadway boot camp. You're singing, acting, and dancing from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then you're in rehearsals from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then you turn around and do it all over again. And that's basically where I got my training. And then eventually, after 4.5 years in that program, I'd say 3 weeks after I graduated, I was offered Simba in The Lion King for Hong Kong Disney. So left college, flew right over there, stayed there for almost 2 years, And then I got really, really homesick because it was a culture shock for me. Obviously, it was my first apartment by myself. It was just me out in a brand new world, you know, by myself. And so I came back home, small town, but obviously I'd outgrown this small town. And I was home for less than a month and I was like, yeah, this isn't gonna work for me. And I just chose LA over New York because I had worked in New York previously and I didn't really like the hustle and bustle of it all. And so went to LA. I wanted to pursue, ironically, film and TV, but then the writer's strike and recession hit that year. And so, you know, a part of our industry had shut down. And I was like, well, I'm not going back home. And so I was like, I have this degree, I need to use it. So from there, you know, my journey for being a professional actor kind of began. And then little by little, I started to make a name for myself out here in LA. And then eventually, you know, got an agent. And after about a good 8 years of hard work being out in LA, I ended up booking Broadway. And my first Broadway show was Motown Musical. So as a result of that, you know, I've been fortunate enough to do other things, including Emmys. And so, yeah, that's partially part of my journey for sure.
That's great. I love it. And so you just put theater down. You're like, oh, we'll see what happens. And then that was your destiny. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, academics obviously is still important to me, you know, just as far as education is concerned. But it was a blessing in disguise that, you know, I just randomly put that down on my application, and who knew that it would springboard something that eventually would become my career, you know? So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Math, I'm going to move to you. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, I'm originally from Nassau, Bahamas, and so I grew up there and was told that I was always like a loud, rambunctious, like flying off the walls kind of kid. And I ended up moving to the States when I was around 8 years old. And it just was a completely different world for me, that the idea that I could actually make a living or even like think about doing art as a potential like job. That was like a foreign in the Bahamas. So being like, you know, a theatrical person and all that stuff, I found myself doing lots of musical theater, lots of theater in school. All of my teachers were incredibly supportive in telling me that this was something that actually was tangible for me. And so, yeah, I put a lot of work in and graduated from high school and ended up going to Carnegie Mellon University with a focus on acting, and had made the decision that I was going to figure out a way to make this my career. And after graduating, moved to New York City, you know, with all like hope and enthusiasm that life would just like take off. And it didn't happen that way. It was me trying to figure out and carve a way into making a name for myself in theater. And the dream wasn't coming. And so by a long story short, I ended up seizing an opportunity to audition for American Idol. And I was on 2 seasons of American Idol after that and made it to the top 20. And
I remember you.
What was that?
I remember you.
Sweet. So yeah, so after getting eliminated, I made it a choice to be like, no, I miss theater. Theater's this thing that I got to be doing. And I picked up and moved back to New York City to try to see if to give it one good last shot. And to be honest, I landed in New York City and saw the last preview of Hamilton at the Public. And I'll never forget this. I finished the show and stormed out of the theater and proceeded to like stand in a corner and cry. Like, like shoulder, like cry. I've never experienced anything like that before. And that was then the mission, was like, oh, I gotta be in Hamilton. And so that was the goal. Every single day that I was in New York, I was like, how do I get into this show? And then David left and I went, and that was my first audition for Hamilton, as I went in to be the cover for Jefferson on Broadway. And they were like, not right now, but we'll call you back in for the tour. And I went, that's funny, sure you will. But they did. And I went in for the same track. I was gonna be a cover. And they saw something different in me. And they were like, could you please just start reading the Mulligan and Madison stuff? And after 3 rounds of that, I made it into Hamilton. And with these 2 good friends of mine, and we did that for a year. And then since leaving Hamilton, I have been focusing my time with diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And basically what I'm doing right now is I create material, create art, create basically anything to help people translate either their privileges or their biases through art, and understanding that it's some things that you're unaware of sometimes. And so I had the fortunate task of being employed with Google right now, and we are basically creating workshops for their employees to go through and constantly performing. I'm a singer-songwriter. I produced like 3 albums, released a lot of music over the past couple of years. And yeah, I'm just very fortunate to be making a living off of creating and making art.
That's amazing. I love that story. I love it. Ryan, you're next.
My story starts, I was born in the Bronx. So from New York City. My parents split when I was younger. I lived on Long Island, and I was always into, making a show, you know what I mean? Just in personality. I was always like, always putting some kind of energy forward. I started channeling that into like theater and performing, in school plays and stuff like that. When I was younger, always had fun doing that. It's something clicked in my head around like high school-ish, where I was like, I think it's when you realize that the art is just as much of a science as like being, you know what I mean? There's so many layers and levels and things that you can break down and learn from it, and that you could teach others, and you can also learn from others. Once I realized how expansive the world of performing, being theatrical just was, I was totally taken in by it on the other end, on the professional end. And I got mentally serious about it. I started trying to figure out, we were talking about just before we logged on, we were talking about that search for colleges and stuff. And that was very, very tricky for me, as it is for many performers. I ended up landing at a conservatory in the SUNY system here in New York, SUNY Purchase. And I went to their acting conservatory. And, we were speaking about how earlier about how different colleges focus on different things and might not focus on every aspect of it, of what it takes to do musical theater evenly. And my school was definitely, I went to an acting conservatory. We did a little bit of dance. We worked on voice a little bit, but more the spoken voice, and from terms of like the classics, it was all like, we did contemporary, we did a lot of contemporary stuff, but the training was highly focused in terms of the classics and classical training. And yeah, I took all that info. And then after I left, I took what I learned after I left from college, and I just started like grinding. I really started working hard and putting my best foot forward at all times. And that got me opportunities in terms of regional work all over the country. I worked in all kinds of dinner theaters, of all kinds of playhouses. I ended up singing was something that I always did, more so, in like middle school and high school and the musicals and stuff. And like I said, when I went to college, it was more of a text-based acting program, but singing was always near and dear to my heart. So I definitely tried to make up for what I didn't necessarily get in my college training, with just like always trying to outwork the person to my left, to the left and the right. Always trying to improve my voice. I remember learning a lot. I feel like I complemented my training from friends. I would befriend the people who had the tools that I didn't necessarily feel like I had with confidence. And I still have. I tell Mathenee that, and Desmond, I latch on to really great singers, and try to learn from just, speaking to them and asking for those things. And also just like being able to be a little bit of a sponge, and like, you don't even need to really teach me per se, and I'm going to absorb something from you, hopefully just from being around and being immersed in your friend's energy. And I feel like all great performers do that to a certain degree, because no performer has every, little bit of the whole thing like figured out. So I started putting the pieces together for myself as I went. And I feel like a lot of great performers learn. Yes, you learn a lot from school, but a lot of that stuff that you can't learn behind the desk or in a classroom, you learn on your feet. You learn doing shows. You learn in the boot campness of it, of once the thing starts and you're like, oh, wow, like here I am. This is the beginning point, but there is where I want to be. And I always had my sights set for what was next, and kind of grew that. And eventually, I was, I'd also done like children's theater tours and stuff like that. And like, I remember getting my feet wet in traveling the country, doing theater that way, so that by the time I was auditioning for Hamilton and helped originate the first national tour, I felt that it was my time, and you know, that I had definitely accrued the skills and the kind of things that I wanted in my head, that I wanted in my artistry, in my bag of tricks, like we like to call them.
Yeah.
I definitely had enough to feel that I could go and compete with, you know, anyone else who was out there doing the thing. And the funny thing was, with Lynn's work, it's all based, a lot of it is based in that, you know, as much as it is musical theater and definitely never forgets its identity in that, it's also trying to infuse the kind of pop music we hear on the radio, the R&B that we listened to growing up, definitely the hip hop and the rap that was, as, you know, being from the Bronx and then, you know, moving out to Brentwood, Long Island, you know, it was always a soundtrack to my life, like growing up. So all of my greatest, my favorite influences and artists were from the world that Lynn was using to create these masterpieces.
Yes.
So yeah, I just put it all together, clicked. I think timing, you know what I mean? Knowing when the time is right and striking when the iron's hot, I think is part of the game there. And yeah, I had a great time with these fellas in Hamilton. We got to see, you know, we started here in New York, and that rehearsal process bounced to the other coast, and we slowly worked our way back to the middle of the country. It was a blast. And yeah, after getting off the road, I used that time to refocus, one, because, you know, touring with Hamilton can be a lot of things. It's more than just doing the show. It's so much that comes with it, with the people you meet, the kind of things that you see in the places that you go. And, you know, it's a whole different world at that point. But I came back, I decompressed, and then I kind of went back and I focused back in on the classics for a little while, did some Sophocles, Shakespeare. I'd already done Lin-Manuel's first show in the Heights prior to doing it a few times, but never got to play the role that he originated and created, Usnavi, which I'm sure a lot of people who are aware of Hamilton are aware of that show and that role. But I got to do that in I think we did 4 cities in a co-pro, and got to tour around Milwaukee, Seattle, Portland, and some fun cities. And yeah, we had a great time. And that was a big full circle moment for me, because getting to play Hamilton as often as I did with the First National Touring Company, it was always a box that I had to check in terms of playing Usnavi, you know, a Latino character from New York City, from the same areas that I'm from the Bronx, and he's from Washington Heights, which are just separated by the smallest amount of water, but the same like latitude, pretty much. Like it was just an honor and a privilege and a pleasure, you know. And I've been working, you know, COVID has kind of slowed everything down since then, but you know, I was definitely working in that way, just trying to like do as much stuff that I connect with and have wanted to do for so long, and really resonate with, you know.
Great. Thank you. I love all of your stories and how you got to where you are. And David, last but not least, tell us a little bit about your founding story and how you got into this world, the theatrical world and casting world.
Oh yeah, how do I follow all of that? So yeah, I started as a performer myself at a young age, training, performing, and that's how I started into this world, growing up in Chicago, yay. And I found that I was always that person on the side of the stage who was rooting for everybody else and was just mesmerized by talent and creative people. And so it was a really natural progression to transition into the world of casting with musicals and feature films and television. And through that process and arts education, again, just wanting to highlight talent as best as possible and to move their careers, but also to give them a platform that they didn't have previously. So that became my passion, and it easily translated into the world of events. I always had friends and who were asking to bring talent to their corporate event or their private party, and I loved it. And as I started to transition from New York into Chicago, I spent a lot more time working in that space, and it really evolved into being a full-time and a great time profession of bringing A-list celebrities, bringing keynote speakers, and bringing Broadway talent to corporate events and private parties.
That's great. And tell us a little bit about the Ham Trio that you put together that was for private parties and events.
Yeah, so very fortunately, I was introduced to Ryan for a private party with the Incredible Arts Foundation in Chicago. It was a great experience, and just like he said in his casting process, I was like, I love this guy. I need to work with him as much as possible. And that's how it started. And then from there, we got a call from Pittsburgh, an incredible events partner there too. Sheila Wiener, we love you. She called and said, look, we have this huge convention with 15,000 people for the Visit Pittsburgh PCMA convention, and said, what do you got? And I said, well, I have this guy. He's really talented. And they knew they wanted singers. They knew they wanted Broadway. And I said, well, let me talk to Ryan and let's see what we can come up with. And Ryan was phenomenal and introduced me to Mathenee and Jordan, who came out and performed for us and did an incredible job. And it just evolved from there. But it was really a collaboration with Ryan to come up with something special.
Awesome. And was it all Hamilton songs, or was it all different, or what is the performance?
Yeah, it was, we came out, that first one was, it was, we think we did like 5 songs. And yeah, we just came out 6, we did 6, thank you. Mathenee actually helped me out too. Once I knew who I wanted to, like, who could get this done, like who could really like kind of bring, because we can't go out and perform the show. 1, there's not enough time, and 2, you need a lot of things to do Hamilton, right? But it's like Hamilton at the end of the day is just a ton of energy. It's a blast on stage. So it's like there's so much that we can bring to the table there, that we can communicate. You know, at the end of the day, it's a story to be told. So I started keying into like how can I tell this story, or tell or get across the weight of this piece with as few working parts as possible, to really kind of like simplify it and to focus in so we could do more with less. And I started rapping. I started bouncing ideas around in my head, and then I called up Mathenee, someone I knew I definitely wanted to work with in terms of this project, and he kind of like dotted the I's and helped cross all those T's, and was like, well, if you think about it this way, there's this kind of there's this way the story could grow this way. We could even curve it and do something they wouldn't expect in this way. And yeah, we pretty much showed up. We had all the plans and the blueprint set. And we get there, and David had warned us, but it was just this beautiful. We were in this convention center that was just pretty much like gutted and then reset up for the convention of all conventions. It felt like, there was like we were like getting a tour, just from our liaison, and it was like lasers were flying around, drones were mixing cocktails, and just people like 15,000 short. It felt like 150,000. It was insane, but we got through our mic check, and we just knew with that amount of people, like, and that's the blessing of doing a show like Hamilton, is that people come to the show, right? And they know that they have a role in that show, right? It's not, there's no call and response per se, but there is, an energy that they end up giving off because they really want to be there. People at that time, and still to this day, are really excited about the piece and what it does and what it showcases just for Erica in period. And we knew, we just looked at each other, and that first song was about to go, and it's that, clap, dun, da, 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 dun, dun, dun. Yeah. We felt everyone kind of collectively breathed together. We exhaled, and we just went, and we just told our story. And it was a great feeling. It was a great feeling for everyone, for us on stage, for everyone off. And it really connected everyone on top of everything else that, had a point to do that.
And this is a good transition, David, to talking about virtual events. And so that was an in-person event. It's obviously amazing if you can bring in, star talent to take an event to the next level. I know fundraiser wise, we always raise more money when we have star talent. But let's talk about virtual events. And David, especially recently, you've even booked Dr. Fauci for virtual events, all types of people. What is the process you take to find the right talent for the right event, and how is it different from, in-person events?
It's a great question. Thank you. And first, I did say thank you for having us. We love PartySlate. Yay. So all of it for us, it's the same process, whether it be a live event or a virtual event. We start with the client. So though we love talent and we support all talent, the client is actually who hires us. So it all begins with a really deep conversation about your event, the details, what are your goals, what are your themes, the way any event professional works. So we start there. And then we work to bring that perfect person to elevate that event to the next level. So I'll take an example of PartySlate's second anniversary.
That was amazing.
It was so good. We love that. So we knew PartySlate, so we knew who you were. We knew what you wanted to accomplish, but the new level of detail, which was exciting, was that you were on a baking show. And so we love that. So
I was on Cake Hunters, so I should say I am a celebrity. No, I was on Cake Hunters. I got to pick the winning cake for PartySlate's second anniversary, which led us to Waitress, right?
Yes, exactly. So I said, what is the perfect show for a baking competition? And we knew we wanted musical talent, and we used Hamilton from Chicago. So we knew we had that theme already on the first anniversary. So the second anniversary with the baking, I said, what's better? Waitress. It's all about baking pies. We tracked down that, as we do, like every event professional, we look at every detail and leave no stone unturned. So we found that there was a touring production of Waitress just a couple hours away. we flew her over on her night off. Desi Oakley is her name. She's an incredible performer.
She was so great.
So great, right? And so
there was actually people crying that when they watched her perform. I'm like, I hadn't seen Waitress at the time, but like, I'm like, oh my God, they were crying at I mean, in a happy way, not crying out of being sad. Yeah.
Terrifying, yeah. But that's the moment when you can transfer an event from an event to a moment where they're crying, where they'll never forget that moment, and it's that perfect combination of the right person, the right moment, the right team, and then the right client. And so that, to your point, that's what we do. We look at all aspects of the event, and then we say, how can we design the perfect production, with the production being your event?
Right. And I think what we found is, we were able to have it, I think, a Monday night. That's when easy to get the venue. We get a lot of sponsors. So for us, but the world has changed, and I know, and my heart feels for everyone that's been impacted in our industry, in the live events industry, from this pandemic. And I know we will rebuild, but there is now an opportunity for both talent and for event producers to more easily pull in, especially virtual events, but even small intimate events, because of this very unique situation. I always am looking for silver linings, because I know how much pain is in the industry from the pandemic. So tell us about this kind of unique opportunity for virtual events now that unfortunately they aren't on Broadway every night.
Yeah, echoing what you said, my heart is with everybody in all industries who have been affected, and of course all people who have been affected. We are here to help and support everyone in every possible way. So with that said, virtual events, for us, because we only deal in entertainment and talent, it was for us, it was a sort of an easy transition to present virtual events, and it's made everyone accessible, from the landscape of entertainment, which wouldn't be affordable or wouldn't be available. Now, fortunately and unfortunately, everyone's available and everybody's interested. And then another shift, which the Broadway community is in all of our hearts, we've never seen a moment where Broadway goes dark ever. And so in this moment where Broadway isn't available and live theater isn't available, all of these incredible performers are available, and we need to support them. So this is the time that you can bring live theatrical entertainment to a virtual event where you might not have been able to any night of the week besides Monday, but now you can bring it to anyone, anywhere, anytime.
Right. And it is a small window, because the world will open up again. And of course you can do the off nights, and then you can do, non-Broadway stars, of course. But I was just excited to bring this concept to our event professional community. And I would love to hear from everyone, what your experience has been with virtual events. It will never be the same as in person, but it's a new, more intimate way. It's almost like when I stalk people at the stage door just to get a glimpse after a show. I'm not a stalker, don't worry. This is a more intimate conversation with people that you admire. And so maybe starting with, who should we start with? Desmond, why don't we start with you? Any experience you've had with virtual events, and what's your sense on the opportunity?
Well, like you said, it's a very intimate experience. So, you know, for the people who are joining this webinar, you kind of think of it kind of like when you're viewing Netflix or Hulu or whatever, you get to enjoy these things from the comfort of your own home versus like when you're in a live setting, you know, you have a bunch of people around you, you're squished, you know, in between seats, things of that nature. Like nowadays with virtual events, it's like, you could be in your pajamas and still enjoy what we have to present. And, you know, unfortunately with Broadway shutting down, I think that people tend to forget that like the art doesn't die just because one format has kind of pressed pause. You know, we're still artists outside of just the Broadway stage. So, you know, for me, as far as transitioning into virtual anything, you know, at the moment, I'm a youth arts instructor where I'm basically teaching kids, teenagers, and even adults how to, you know, hone their craft and skills as performers, actors, or just creative beings in general. So even though I'm not doing it on a Broadway stage or on a first national tour, I'm still passing the torch to these people who are still a part of that creative aspect, who still love you know, the stage and music theater, Broadway, whatever that is. But the beauty of it is that it is more hands-on and it's more intimate. And even though there is a distance, you're still close to these people because of the interaction. So it's almost like, again, a blessing in disguise that it's happening, because I don't think that a lot of theater goers would be afforded the opportunity to have intimate conversations with said performers within any given show aside from at the stage door. So it's definitely
usually you only get like 10 seconds at the stage door, because then the people just giving you a dirty look like move on, right? So it's a different level of access.
Yeah. But again, it's more of an intimate, you know, setting, which is a benefit because you don't have to go anywhere to enjoy us for your virtual events, and you're still getting the same performance qualities. You're still getting to see, you know, the impact of live art. So it never really dies. It just kind of morphs and transitions, you know, as the world continues to spin. So yeah, it's definitely a transition, but definitely doable and a lot of fun. Just have good Wi-Fi.
And Math, I'll turn it over to you. You know, even with American Idol, again, this dates me a little bit, but when American Idol first came out, many people had not texted before, believe it or not. Texting became a thing with American Idol. And what I'll say about this pandemic is I've been doing Zoom for years with venture capitalists, raising money for PartySlate, but Zoom was not, or video conferencing was not mass market like it is today. So there is that new connection to have that more intimate relationship, even though we're not together. I'm just curious from your perspective, digital events, how you've been connecting with people since kind of Broadway went dark. And I know you're still working with Google, which is amazing, on DEI initiatives as well.
Yeah, I've actually done some really crazy things performance-wise since the pandemic started. And I think what the cool thing about it is that it's making everyone think in a completely new, different way. People are fearful that sometimes the quality or creative content will be lacking, but no, some people, I know, like I did a reading of a new musical, and you would have never thought that we were in a pandemic. It's a matter of like having the correct minds on a project, because you can make something very small or you can make something incredibly extravagant even in this medium. And so for instance, I sang at a friend's wedding, and she literally was like, I felt like you were in the room. Like it's just a little bit more, it's something about it is very personal and very intimate in a way that still like suggests you being in the room with them at the same time. It's really, it's something to get used to at the same point as well. Some parts of it feel like it's foreign because you're so used to performances being a certain way. So you're like, I'm chilling on my couch and this feels weird, but I'm just watching this like this. Do you think that's more so the thing you have to get used to, because the quality is all still there. And
we talked before about like the pre-recording versus the live, or the combination of the two. What have you seen most successful? Because I know that the pre-recording, you can have more than one person and kind of make it more produced, because it's very risky on a Zoom. You know, like, how are we going to do this together? So what have you seen most successful?
I've done both. It's one of those things where it depends on how many people you need performing at the same time. It's going to be the biggest obstacle. And for instance, some of the songs that we do in the ham trio, it would work fine with just like a Zoom call like this. But there are certain things, if you want us to be in, you know, singing harmony together or anything like that, yeah, it does pose a problem, because, you know, there's always going to be that little lag or anything like that. But but there are ways around it. There are things that we can figure out. It's pre-recording sometimes is appropriate for a certain type of project. And there are certain things in which I want to feel as though that man is singing that song at this exact moment, and I'm taking in that moment. Exactly. And so it just depends upon, I think that also just comes down to terms with like what the client is asking for. And so everything is achievable. It's just a matter of what you want.
Yes, I love that. And Ryan, how about your experience with virtual events and what you've seen successful?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to say the least, to piggyback on what Desmond was saying. Yeah, you know, there is no way to stop creativity. You know, there's no way to put the kibosh on art. So I feel like myself, all my performer friends, anybody who I or themselves considers a creative, it's really been challenging. But I think the challenge has been to pivot, you know, is to kind of really just be malleable, be flexible, you know, in terms of realizing that there was always a need for our creativity, right? There's always whether it's a performance, whether it's something just purely visual, whether it's something purely audio, you know, it's just sonically, we want to be entertained. We still want to push the envelope forward. There's ways to do it, as Mathenee was saying. There is a way to kind of create and to be present in almost any medium, whether it's Zoom, whether it's, you know, a call of this StreamYard or anything, you know, they all present alleyways and avenues that we can still, as creatives, find ways to tell stories, which at the end of the day, what the ham trio is kind of really rooted on. Yes, we come and, you know, we sing the songs and we do the thing for you, we bring it to life, but we're really doing it as storytellers, you know, as really our true honest selves, the same thing that brought us to the piece initially, you know, that we would then return to the guests that would come and see the shows. That's the same thing that we do, whether we're in front of, you know, 15,000 people in Pittsburgh, or, you know, the American Heart Association out in Philly. You know, we're really connecting and engaging through who we are as people and how we tell stories via the device of Hamilton or Frank Sinatra song or whatever have you, you know. And for myself personally, I've pivoted in terms of still working with theaters. A lot of theaters, or a handful of theaters, have reached out to me and my girlfriend, who is also a performing artist, in terms of as well as a director, how to engage with their theatrical audiences via Zoom, just YouTube, or just the online medium, and that has been tricky. And it's and I love that the solution to that problem has to involve all of us, the directors, the people behind the desk at those these big theater companies, as well as the performers, the ones that were out there telling the stories and putting their artistry out on the line. You know, it's taking all of us to put our heads around this and figure it out. And I've helped theaters like Milwaukee Rep just recently. One of the last things we did was with their company, West Side Story, which was choreographed by original Ham alum John Rua. He got his company together, and they wanted to kind of do something through the vehicle of West Side Story, the show that they had just performed at this theater, but they wanted to speak to not only the pandemic and what we're going through now, but just, you know, things that are very in the forefront, like the Black Lives Matter movement, and kind of, you know, we took the time and the energy and the focus to kind of put all of our heads, you know, around this thing and say, this is what we want to do, this is how we want to do it, which would be challenging enough just in terms of like, we're going to take this show and we're going to try to make this statement with it. If you were just doing that on stage, that would be challenging and tricky and fun and invigorating all on its own. But now we want to do this through the online social media, you know, person connect in a different way through people's screens. And we still want to do it as the storytellers that we train and that we know and that we love being. And, you know, it was a process. It took so, you know, we even had to add people to the conversation as we went and hit more roadblocks and stuff. But I think the piece of it just got released, I think like a week or two back. It ended up checking all the boxes that we wanted it to do. It spoke to the message that we were trying to get across. And it also allowed the performers of that show to use the text, you know, use something that they knew very well as just West Side Story in the context that they were performing it, but then getting to turn those same sounds and the same ideas of that show to speak to something, you know, much bigger than any show, you know, which is inclusion and representation, you know, diversity, all the kind of things that Mathenee's doing over at Google. You know, we're able to kind of, in the challenge of COVID and doing most things on Zoom has also, I think, and it doesn't go said enough, that it's allowed a lot of artists to elevate and to really take their game to the next level. And to then we bring anything that a creative truly does, they bring their audience with them, you know? Yeah. So we're elevating those conversations.
Yeah,
we're elevating those
silver linings. You know, we used to do a lot of live events, and we will again do live events, but now, you know, people from South America can join our webinars, and people from a much bigger global stage. And we do get people from all over the country and the world joining our weekly, usually geeky digital marketing events, but they like it. So David, I'm gonna turn it over to you, David. I think a couple people have asked on the call, but you know, what is the process of, you know, thinking through, okay, you have an idea, you have a big event, you have a gala of, and I know you go from low end to, you know, crazy high end expenses. Like what is the process, let's say an event planner would take to work with you or anyone else on booking talent for their virtual event?
Yeah, so they call us and done, scene. No, so we call, we set up a call and we just start the conversation right there of what are you doing? What do you want to accomplish? What mission? And just like I said earlier, casting a show, we cast your event. Yes. So we get into all of the details and then we start creating, so we start there and then we do a deep dive on our side about your brand, your event, all of that good stuff. And then we start pitching ideas. So as a creative agency, that's our favorite part, being creative. So
you represent kind of the client. And so you're not the manager or representative. I don't even know the right word to use. I pretend I'm a Hollywood agent, but you're not representing the talent. You're helping the client find the right talent. So you can go to anyone, obviously you have a lot of relationships, but anyone from Dr. Fauci to Hamilton cast members.
We need a drinking game every time we see Dr. Fauci.
I just thought that was cool that you booked him for an event. I mean, who wouldn't want to be on a call with this guy?
Incredible. You're right. I mean, we do. So from keynotes to Broadway to high-end celebrities to housewives to bachelorettes, we've done it all, whether it be live or virtual. So we look at what you really want to accomplish, and then we create a list together, and then we go from that list. And that process can take a week. It can take a couple of years. We, after working together and narrowing it down, then you have to take it to the talent. And that's a process in itself.
And do people have to come with a budget in mind? Like, I have this chunk of money to spend, or do you kind of help people understand, you know, with this type of thing, this is the budget you should be thinking about?
Yes.
I hate to talk money with the talent.
You know, you're so right. That's exactly what we do. I mean, so much of what our role is as an educator from all sides. So we're educating the client. And for event pros, they're used to this. Their clients come to them and say, I have $10,000 and I want the Hollywood Bowl and Beyonce. And we go, well, that's great. Yeah. So let's take it from Beyonce and bring it to Broadway. So we have to, we work with them to bring down expectations, Yes, we love as many details as you can bring. But we will inform you of, this is how much you have. Great. This is the talent we're looking at. And format is a big indicator on that too. Because if they want
I
a
know
singing,
someone asked, I'm doing Pamela's job, our editor's going to join a little bit, but someone asked about, what can go wrong with virtual events? And, I had that experience. We had Mindy Weiss on, and like all of a sudden 1,000 people came on and the thing blew up, and then we moved platforms. But what have you seen go wrong, and what can you do to avoid those things going wrong?
Well, from my end, we are fortunate that we work with the talent, and that's it.
Yeah,
So we
you're
stay
not the
in our
tech
lane.
people. Yeah.
No, so we rely on our event pros who make us look incredible. So nothing goes wrong.
Okay.
So the same process is for us, that we work with them through sound checks and dress rehearsals, and building that lighting and building them the sound, so that when it comes to show day, you eliminate every possible obstacle you can. But that's also why you hire incredible people like these
and
gentlemen.
many event
They're used to
professionals
live theater.
who had done this in the past, AV companies, videographers, photographers, and many new people have added this skill set by necessity to what they offer. And so I believe these virtual events or hybrid events are going to continue well after COVID, because many times you'll have in person, but you'll extend that in-person event to a virtual audience. So I think it's a great skill set that is now mass market, that was before very niche. And then talk about, again, we had some questions earlier on about two kind of fun things you can share. Maybe one, a funny audition story, or two, anything that's happened on a virtual event that maybe didn't go as planned. So maybe Ryan, I know you have a fun audition story. I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah. Well, we were speaking a little bit about it earlier, but I was letting everyone know about a little bit of my atypical journey through the Hamilton process that actually got me in the show with these amazing fellas. And I think it's interesting that most audition processes tend to be very atypical. People think it's, come in, you sing, you get the call back, and then you find out, maybe final callbacks, and you find out it can go that way, and it definitely has. But, we all have stories of like, oh yeah, I auditioned 4 days in a row, and then 4 months later, I found out that I got a call back. You know what I mean? Just to like, oh, I didn't, you didn't, lost track of that entirely. But my Hamilton experience was interesting. I didn't have representation at the time that I started my process. I just had seen the show. I saw the original company in standing room as soon as I could. I saw them. A friend of mine who was in the company, original dance captain, actually got me standing room seats. So I saw the piece, and I'm sure as the same for many of us, it just like from where they were to where I was sitting, it felt like they were talking directly to me, and I could look around in the audience and just see everyone, I think, is having the same exact experience that I am. Like, this is one of the most unique and special and energized pieces that I've ever seen. And from that moment, pretty much I was in my mind thinking about ways that I saw myself in the piece, in terms of that was a conversation that I felt we were having through just energy. And I knew inside that I wanted to pick that conversation up and take it to where I knew I could take it, and what I had to say, and and the energy that I wanted to add to it, and then further put out to the next need, and inspire the next, whether it was an artist, whether it was an architect, just somebody who is hearing this and seeing themselves in it, So I started really just like switching. I was always trying to go to you as an actor in New York City or anywhere in any market, the more things you go to, the better you're just bettering your odds, because rejection is part of the game. Not every casting director or anyone behind the table is going to like what you do or think that what you do is perfect for their piece every single time. Whether it's, you can go audition for the same show and it's always got a different creative team behind, a different director, different vision, and you might fit two of their visions, one, none, or all of them, and be perfect, and there's really that's not our job really, is to be overly concerned with that. I feel it's just really to go out there, work your hardest, put your realest self on a plate, present that plate, and say, this is what I would love to eat and enjoy. Hopefully you feel the same way. And if you don't, you just take your talents and your work.
That's what I have to do when I'm raising venture capital money, and you get 100 meetings and you get 95 no's. So
yeah, and
I can relate.
It's why they call it a game. It's really just the game of it. It's increasing those odds, and the more opportunity you have in front of someone in an audition setting, the more opportunity you have for that potential yes. That's why they call it a break. I've always viewed it as auditioning is the work, and when you finally get a call back or you get a part, like that's the break. That's the part we don't actually work. We work hard just to go out there and be seen.
So you saw the show at standing room only, and then how did you get to the audition?
So I was going to pretty much everything that I can hear about. There's some publications that, some websites that you can join, like Backstage and Playbill, and you can keep your ear to the ground even without representation. And I was able to do a half a good enough job at that, and kind of like peppering my calendar with all these calls. And I remember hearing about a rule that I don't know if it's still standing, but at the time that I was auditioning, if something had the title of an equity chorus call, could be an equity principal call, a chorus call, and some other titles. But if it had that specific one, the sitting conductor or musical director had to be one of the people behind the table. And at that time, the show had just started, so Lynn was in the show, and Tommy Kail, the director, was probably at all was at all the performances still, and Alex Lacamoire, the musical director and arranger of the piece, was still sitting in the pit and conducting the pit every single night. So he was in that slot. So I knew he'd have to be there, or I thought he would, and I came and I had this piece planned that I had done, I think maybe once or twice before. I was just like working the kinks out of it. I had this idea that I would take this 90s hip hop classic beat that everyone knows. It's produced by the Beatnuts, but Big Pun is one of the rappers on it. It was a few rappers on it, and Big Pun, if you know any of Lynn's pieces, Pun is a huge influence on In the Heights, Hamilton, and some of the other pieces that he's done as well, in terms of when he writes raps. That energy, that below, that New York City-ness is usually present in 99.9% of everything that he does. So I took this instrumental that when you hear the melody of it, and you can't bring a beat into an audition room, right? When you go into an audition room, it's just yourself. There's the people behind the desk ready to judge and grade you, and a piano player. So I took the main melody from this hip hop instrumental, and I got a friend of mine who knows his way around arranging and sheet music and stuff, and he broke down what I thought would translate well as from that beat out to the casting directors. And instead of doing Big Pun's verse, which I was on the fence, I think I might have done it like an audition or two prior, I ended up doing a different verse from Chicago rapper Kanye West off of his second album, that I thought that the kind of flows and the kind of lyrics and the kind of energy that was on that track fit a bit more the kind of Hamilton motif that I was going for. And I just kind of like fused them together and just kind of like worked it out. And I had it ready and I was really ready to go when I was in front of Lack. And yeah, I just kind of like.
Can we hear a little bit of it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I still have everything.
I want to hear just a little bit.
You mind if I audition for you all?
No, yeah.
But it was that kind of thing. Let me just find the instrumental
Remember, things can go wrong with virtual events, so let's see what you got.
Yeah. No, and Lack, the minute the music started like playing, the piano player recognized it, Lack recognized it, and it's like, you got the eyes perked, so you're like, okay, the ears are perked now. And then I just kind of took it and I ran with it. I'm ahead of my time, sometimes years out, so the powers that be won't let me get my ideas out, and that make me want to get my dance out and move to Oklahoma and just live in my aunt's house. Yeah, I romance the thought of leaving it all behind. Kanye, step away from the limelight, like when I was on the grind, and the one 999. Before model chicks was coming over. Before dealerships asked me Benz or Rover. Man, if we could just get one beat on Hover, we could get up off this cheap ass sofa. What the summer of the shy got to offer. An 18-year-old sell stuff, forget a job, you gotta play Euro. My dog worked at Taco Bell, hooked us up plural. Fired a week later, the manager count the churro. Sometimes I can't believe it when I look up in the mirror. How we out in Europe? Yeah, we spending euros, and they claim you never know what you got till it's gone. Man, I know I got it. I don't know what y'all on. I'ma open up a store for aspiring MCs. Won't sell them no dreams, but the inspiration is free. And if they ever flip sides like Anakin, you can sell everything, including the mannequin. Now she got a new chick. Now you Jennifer Aniston. Hold on, I handle it. Don't start panicking, stay calm. Shorty's at the door cause they need more inspiration for their life, they soul, and they song. They say, sorry, Mr. West is gone.
Wow.
So yeah, I did that, and that kind of shocked everyone. No, thank you. Yeah, it kind of shocked.
Look at Math laughing so hard.
I've done that for him like once. We actually lived together on a tour, and we were like talking about, I said, what did you do? What did you do? And I like went and did that, and they're like, that was creative. Like, yeah. So yeah, I just kind of curveballed them, and it worked. Surely enough. Yeah, I didn't realize it. I kind of went to a couple more auditions, but my callback was started. My process had started pretty much there. Lack had put in, I guess, a callback for me, and they had me back in about 2 weeks later. And yeah,
I would have hired you.
It's kind of.
And I know we only have about 5 minutes left, so I want to just put some kind of any other Math, Desmond and David, any other thoughts or stories you want to share? I don't know how you can top that, but Math, you want to share anything about your audition? I know you didn't realize you got the part, right? Remember, didn't they say you were like right away? You're like, oh yeah, then you're like, I got the part.
Oh yeah, that was that was really funny. Wait, so I went in to be a cover for George Washington, and then they were like, hold on, maybe you should just be Mulligan. Did I tell this story to you guys, or did I tell this to everybody about
I think you told everyone, but the fact that you heard from someone else that you got the part or something like, I think you said something like that.
Oh wait, that's so much. Me and my brother both were in the Hamilton journey together. So my brother was in the Broadway cast, and I was in the Los Angeles cast. And so that's kind of like a cool little like piece of information that we were, when I was in the show, we were known as the Hamil Bros, and it was just like we were taking over both coasts.
I love it.
He is still a part of the show right now, it's to be honest, like, I don't know about the other two guys. There's a part of the year of doing Hamilton I don't remember it. Like, and it sounds weird saying that, because it was a mixture of us doing the show so much. Like, we did it close to 500 times within that year. To also like a mixture of it just being like, you were doing the show that much. Like I didn't know what day it was most of the time. Yeah. I didn't know, like, it literally was just a matter of like, everyone was saying, get to the bows. Just get to the bows, and we will know that we did the show. At least that's the only way we could verify the show got done. It was at the end. And it was it was a trippy year for us doing that show. It was a lot of pressure. We were like the first time on this coast doing it. Like, it was a lot of pressure all the time, but I think we all didn't let that pressure kill us. We rose to the occasion. And for these two guys, like, I only had to learn one thing, one role. These two dudes had to learn. Desmond, I think it was 9 roles. Oh my gosh. And then Ryan, it was 9, right? Or 8?
You're on mute, Desmond.
Oh, you're on mute.
Mine was 8.
8.
Half of it was to cover the male principal tracks, and then I also had to cover the ensemble tracks, things of that nature. So you're split right down the middle. And just to kind of piggyback off of, what Mathenee and Ryan were saying, for me, my audition process started back in LA, and this was before they went to Broadway. They came out here, they had added an additional track role to the show in the ensemble, one of the dancers. So they came out here looking for people, and they were videotaping everybody. I knew nothing about the show. The Broadway soundtrack wasn't out. So they sent out this packet, and it was just a bunch of click tracks for you to learn it to, but no one was actually singing on it. Mm-hmm. So I went in and I did it. And I remember it was one of them was Dear Theodosia. And it just said that, he's singing to a baby. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe if I act like I'm holding a baby, that'll work. So I did that. I sang, because it feels like a lullaby, if you're familiar with the show. Did that song, and I just remember the casting director being like, hey, can we record you doing this again? So I was like, sure. Did it again, and I just went about my business. You know, I was still working at Disney out here in Anaheim. And then I just remember before the day was over, my phone was blowing up from my agent, and they were like, oh my gosh, blah, 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 blah. Like, you're the only person that they've called back from Los Angeles. Wow. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, they want to fly you out to New York. And I was like, I'm not following what's going on. So I had to rearrange a lot of things. They ended up flying me out to New York. And I get there, and I'm thinking it's going to be a sea of people. It's literally me and this other guy. And it's a ghost town in one of the largest casting offices in New York. And I just remember going in, it was 17 songs, 69 pages worth of material. And as I was learning this stuff, because I didn't really know the show, I was like, there's no way I can hold all this paper in my hand. I was like, I'm gonna have to memorize all this stuff because the songs are too fast. So I go in, it's the entire creative team. It's Blankenbuehler, it's Lackamore, it's Tommy Kail, it's just all the people involved with the project. And so I was like, okay, and they're looking at me like, so what are you gonna do today? And I was like, what am I gonna do today? And so I took a packet of material and I like spread it out over the floor because I was like, you guys let me know what you would like me to do with all this material. So I did the 17 songs, 69 pages worth of material twice. And then Alex Lackamore, he was so gracious. He was like, did you memorize all of this? And in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, how else was I supposed to do a good job? And he was like, man, he's like, you were the only person we have seen in so long who like just knew all of this material. He was
That's
like,
amazing.
wow. And he just kept, you know, he was so gracious about it. But yeah, from there, it just kind of led to, we love you, but not right now. We'll get to you. And they kept flying me back and forth. And, you know, before I knew it, I was in the Los Angeles company with Mathenee and Ryan. And yeah, I had to cover, I think it was 8 or 9 tracks. And I mean, I think mine is different from Mathenee. Yeah. I had to remember everything. So I remember that show like the back of my head because
well, my kids know all the songs too. So, but they're not performing on stage. But I want to say we're out of time, but David wanted to just wrap up. This was like a dream for me to just talk about the behind the scenes of these shows, because I'm such a big fan, not only of Hamilton, but just, again, I'm in awe of your talent, singing, dancing, acting. It's just, again, I'm great at PowerPoint, but not what you guys do. So David, just let's wrap up with virtual events, this new world we're living in, a very unique time to get to talent like this and other, I won't say the doctor's name, but other big names that are available. They can be on their couch and kind of telescope into these incredible virtual events. Tell us kind of last words of advice on how to think about this.
Sure. Well, first of all, I love my job. I mean, look at this. This is what I get to go to work for every day. Like, who wouldn't love it? So thank you again for having us. As far as virtual events and live events and just entertainment industry and Broadway professionals, we're here for you in every possible way. So if it's just a phone call to hear what you're going through, or if it's to help you with your event, give us a call. Like we said, we'll start with a really deep conversation and are excited to get to know you and get to know what you're doing. And from there, we'll build it, whether we're fortunate we have a large agency that we're working with, a cast reunion from the cast of Mad Men to Dr. Fauci to Hamilton. We can create all of it. And like we said, now the landscape is wide open. Yes. So it's affordable, it's accessible, it's available, and we'd love to help you provide it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. We have actually an LA planner that just wanted to tell you guys how much they enjoyed the show in LA. So you have some fans from all over the country. And thank you guys for spending the time with us. And I know it's challenging, but it's not a challenging time, but it sounds like you're still your creativity. You have different outlets. You guys have so many different ways you can give back to the community and share your creativity. So thank you guys for spending time with our community today. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.